Welcome to the Lettering Mindset and Mad Libs workshop with your host, Dan. So excited to be part of this summer creative retreat. Hope you guys have been having a fantastic time learning new skills, diving into new things. I am thrilled to be here today to talk to you about lettering. What we are going to do today, in case you are slightly confused by that purposely mysterious title, is to talk about the mindset behind a lettering practice and then do a Mad Libs type exercise to jolt your brain creatively. A lot of lettering projects do take longer than the time that we have today, so I prefer to spend the time that we have together having a little chat about how you can think about lettering into the future. So we'll talk about mindset, we'll run through our Mad Libs, you can follow along in the worksheet I provided, and in the last few minutes, I will get started on sketching out, starting a piece, so that we can chat about some of those techniques in real time. So I hope that this sets you up for an exciting and fun experience of thinking about your lettering, getting inspired to set up your own lettering piece. So without further ado, let's jump into the mindset talk that I have prepped here really quick for you. I think it's really important to remember that the art of lettering is really just about expressing words or sharing words in a fresh way, in an artistically engaging way. You want to get people's attention, make them read something familiar or maybe unfamiliar, but either way to slow down and to really consider what is being said because of the way that you have turned it into a visual art piece. The more intentional you can be in creating your lettering pieces, the more impact they could potentially have. You can learn so much about different techniques. There are wonderful workshops on that everywhere. I want to focus today on just how we think about lettering. Mindset is what it will sustain a lettering practice and keep you creating stuff that is exciting to yourself and fun to look at for other people. Because of how it's been presented as an art piece, it really hits different, as they say. Let's talk about the past, the present, and the future. In thinking about the past, when it comes to lettering, I want us to remember that most things are a remix, and that's okay. And the pressure is not on you to create something that is original, because whatever you make is going to have that filter of originality by default. Your experiences and even down to the physical way that you hold your tools and make your things is going to be something that only you can do. You will take in all the various techniques and practices and inspirations from the past and turn them into your own remix as you pursue your craft. So, reference without shame. Go and look up all the different lettering styles you can think of. Copy them as much as you can. Now, don't sell them. We say this a lot. Don't copy someone's work and sell it, because that's stealing. You will be able to tell when something is original enough to yourself that you won't actually be, breaking international copyright law. References are everywhere. Just remember to give credit when you are referencing something very clearly. Most of the time, we find the way to push ourselves to new and exciting places by practicing what has come before us, by standing on the shoulders of giants, by walking down the same road and the trails that have been blazed by previous artists. That's true in most creative fields. That's no less true of lettering. So remix away. Feel free to consult the past. Even if you've been doing this for a long time, go back to some of your old work and see what inspirations you can take from whatever mindset you had at that time as well. Okay, now let's talk about the present. The most important thing to do, I think, with lettering and the present is to embrace where you are right now. You will always have room to grow. That is true of us as long as we're alive. So what that means is don't just focus on what you will be. Take stock of the skills that you have, maybe even make notes on what specifically you want to improve. But if you are pushing yourself solely from a place of criticism and of inferiority, that's going to burn you out really fast. It's going to lead to creative paralysis. I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir. I feel like most creative people understand the feeling of getting super down on the exact state of being where you are in any craft. We just can't afford to do that. What we have to do is show up constantly and continue to build our craft and pursue inspiration. If we're abusing ourselves simply for being who we are, where we are, that's not going to lead to anything productive. So be kind to yourself as you practice. It takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of forgiveness, but those will go a long way. Forgiveness comes into play when you look at the work you've done and you find all the things you want to fix about it. That means that there is a level of taste that you're pursuing. That's where the courage comes in to show up again, to try again, to do a little bit better the next time. So celebrate the process. Really look at what you enjoy. Take notes on that. Really, a lot of this just boils down to take notes on yourself. At any given point, just be aware of where you are. Let that be a truth that doesn't make you hate yourself. Rather, let it be something that inspires you for the additional steps that you have to travel. And finally, to think about the future. It's really important that we always dream really big as creatives. And we probably don't have that much of a problem doing this. So when it comes to thinking about lettering, let yourself get excited for the possibility of what you could do next. There are 3 questions that I think are really helpful in how we dream about the next project or how we plan for the next thing. And those 3 questions that I like to ask myself are, number 1, what can I do that's new? Number 2, what can I do that's meaningful? And number 3, what can I do that's just fun, that I'll enjoy doing? And what I'm going to do here is share some examples of lettering that I've created based on these questions and show you how they unfolded. So for what can I do that's new, I made this piece back in 2016, I believe, at the height of Hamilton the musical hype. This piece was done entirely with pencil and a notebook, so lots of erasing, as you can imagine. But really, the thing that I was going for in lettering this piece from the song Wait For It was, 1, to challenge myself to do something that made me wait for it, literally, but also to try something new, something that I wasn't seeing a whole lot of, which was almost excessively long quotes being laid out in these lockups that just took a variety of styles and then used the opportunity of space to turn the words into something visually fun to look at. And I have a version of it that is colored. I sent one of these to Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he sent me back a very nice note. For that second question, what can I do that's meaningful? Here's a quote that I drew from Coretta Scott King. She was the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whom we have a federal holiday in the United States named after. And I drew this to commemorate that instance of the holiday this year. It says, "When heartbreak knocked on my door, I learned to let faith answer." I thought this was also a good opportunity to let the format of the lettering tell more of a story. So if you look at the way that I use the colors here, most of the quote is in this orange color with these, brighter white gold ornamentations. The borders and the word faith are all in that same color, helps to subconsciously reinforce that sentiment. And it's always fun for me to come up with ways to take advantage of the various elements in a piece to potentially draw out some more meaning. And finally, what can I do that's fun? Honestly, most of the time, I just push myself to letter things that I feel like would be a fun experiment to letter. So these lyrics from Olivia Rodrigo's pop hit, Driver's License. I mean, there's no real reason to do it except that I wanted to. And it was a ton of fun to experiment with this sort of Stabilo colored ink pen style, even though this is all on the iPad. And so sometimes just knowing that you really want to make something out of a quote can be the fuel that you need to sit down and turn it into something cool. All of that to say, one of my greatest tips for being able to answer these questions and how you dream about what you're doing next is to have an ongoing inventory. Quotes and lyrics, bits of speeches, passages from books, poems, and plays to keep in your back pocket to help you practice on days when you don't feel like practicing, to help you be inspired to make, because you know that these are all quotes and words that have affected you in some way. So keep those somewhere, and when you're looking for your next project, you'll have a ton of raw material to draw from. Or you can let the inspiration strike when someone like Olivia Rodrigo releases something like Driver's License, that you just feel the immediate fun inspiration to tackle. So really, to summarize all of that mindset talk, we could go on and on about that, but I feel like that might be sufficient to get you hyped for what we're going to generate next. To recap, thinking about the past and lettering, keep referencing things without shame, but don't steal. For the present, embrace where you are, keep going, keep doing stuff, have courage and forgiveness. And for the future, dream big and ask yourself, what could I do that's new? What could I do that's memorable? What can I do that's fun? And then, go for it. See what happens. The possibility of what you can make should be the most inspiring thing for you. And I hope that you seize that and you never lose sight of it. It is so fun to watch yourself grow as you practice and learn. And I hope that everyone gets a chance to experience that. Keep showing up, keep trying new things. And speaking of trying new things, let's jump to the Mad Libs. For those of you who might not be familiar with what Mad Libs are as a concept, think of it this way. Sometimes you get a sheet of paper and it just tells you, okay, write down a person's name, write down a random number, a random color, write down like something you would call a family member, like mom or dad. And so you write down all these words, you have no idea in the moment why you're writing them down. And then the next page will tell you to take, that sheet that you wrote everything down on and, okay, put it in this slot. This is where the name goes. This is where the color goes. And it tells, like on the other sheet of paper, there's a story that just has those blanks. So what we're gonna do is something similar, except that instead of a sentence, the answers that you give to each of these prompts here are going to correspond to a different element of the lettering prompt that you are going to use for this challenge. That will hopefully kickstart some inspiration in a new direction for you. So go ahead and write down your answers to these 5 things. I'll give you some time to do that here with this beautiful elevator music, and then we'll reconvene in a second. And obviously nobody's going to check if you're lying, and it doesn't make too much of a difference, but it might be more fun to see what your destiny actually has in store if you tell the truth, so maybe try that. Okay, like they say in the standardized tests that I hope you're all free of at this point in your life, pencils down, and let's see what your answers have decided you're going to work on today. Okay, so based on your birth month, go ahead and find what that is, follow the arrow down, and see what you're going to be using as the source of your lettering. So if you're January, May, or September, because that's how columns work, you're going to be doing a movie, TV show, something from a play, or quotes by actors. So this is sort of the drama side of things. Welcome to House Hufflepuff, I guess. Next up, February, June, or October, you're going to be taking your cues from a podcast or a speech, famous public writing, something that's spoken, orated, as they say. Orated? That word sounds so weird in voiceover. Okay, March, July, and November, folks. you're taking your cues from literature. So look up either fiction or nonfiction, a religious text perhaps, or quotes by famous writers. And last but not least, because I fall into this category, April, August, and December people, we are going to use musical inspiration. Fancy that. Song, musical, or quotes by musicians or artists. So, that's your source category, and write that down as well. We'll move on to the next in a sec. Okay, for no particular reason at all, the number of siblings that you wrote down corresponds to the choice of mood or emotion to guide the quote that you find. So, only children out there, you get to look up something funny, good for you. If you have one sibling, something that's just relatively thought-provoking, something that makes you go, huh, or or put on your monocle, like the emoji suggests. If you have two siblings, find something that has to do with love or the exuberance around love. For those of us with 3 siblings, I don't really know how to describe this one, but interpret it how you will. Probably something that makes you also kind of like go, huh, but maybe in a fear direction, and address that fear. Okay, number 4, or rather, those of you who have 4 siblings, some quote that has to do with being at peace. And finally, if you have 5 or more siblings, feel free to take this in whatever direction you think this emoji is suggesting. Wink, wink. Got it? Alright, on to the next. Okay, the last thing that you ate, the flavor of it, is, or the closest thing thereto. I did not include bitter because I don't know how many of you are actively seeking out bitter things to eat. But yeah, hey, you do you, and feel free to fit that in whatever category comes secondary to that. Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. Feel free to take this as a suggestion or just as the primary style that you're going to use, as opposed to needing the entire piece to look this way. So for instance, if you ate something sweet, like I did, 90% of the time, just have the main style be calligraphic or script lettering, but feel free to incorporate other styles. 3 down, 2 to go. Let's get to it. The number of pets that you have at this moment will determine the main color of your piece. So those of us in the No Pets Club, instead of adoring fur babies, we get to use the color blue. And so on. 1 pet, use green. 2 pets, yellow and gold. 3 pets, black, and 4 or more. How are you not redlining with so many animals? More power to you. Okay, final element of your prompt. This one is fun. Using the first letter of your last name or your surname or whichever name you need to use based on how your name works, you get a little spicy challenge to whatever you were planning to do. Okay, so ABCD group, you get to pick a quote that's longer than you've ever done before. The EFGHIs, you get to incorporate illustrative elements into your piece. So whether that means finding some or drawing your own, the sky's the limit. You get to use pictures. JKLM. So you guys are with me. We are gonna try creating a ligature that combines 3 letters. Notice how I acted surprised at the thing I created for us. NOPQR, folks. Okay, you are gonna experiment with textures. you get to interpret that however you like. So brushes or layer masks or fun backgrounds, up to you. STUV, you guys are in the new flourishing or ornamentation style club. Something that pushes you out of your comfort zone and gives you permission to do a lot of really fun doodly type stuff. Congratulations. And finally, WXYZs. Find a source that you've never heard or read before. So you're looking for something from someone that you've never encountered. And hopefully that introduces you to a whole new world of wonderfulness. Alright, you guys got that? I am going to cycle through these slides one more time because I love you. And then we'll jump right into me setting up my attempt at this prompt for the last few minutes that we have together. So I'll see you then. Okay, everyone, welcome to the iPad recording part of the workshop. I'm going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes here setting up my composition and probably getting pretty far because I have practiced working really quickly, but please do not feel the pressure to do the same. All I really want to do is show you how I think about this stuff, and honestly, if you use this time to just look up what you might want to do, that is perfect. And then in your own time, when you have some time to sit down and take more than 10 to 15 minutes, I would encourage you to create a piece and then share it with everyone else, see what you've come up with. So I've got my notes here from my own Mad Libs results. We're going to do something from a musical or a song, something that has to do with fear and awe, something that's going to come out in a calligraphic or script lettering style primarily. I'm going to use the color blue, and the challenge is that I should include a 3-letter ligature. Full disclosure, I recorded this entire thing just now and went through the motions before realizing that I had not hit the record button on the iPad. And after, the requisite amount of screaming at myself gently, we're gonna start over, but it would be disingenuous of me to pretend like I didn't already give this a go. In fact, in the layers, there's the one that says I effed up, and that is the final 15-minute composition that I came up with. But I'm going to walk you through the steps I took anyway. Hopefully this will be a little faster as a result of having been through it before, so let's go. Okay, you'll also notice I started with this black watercolor textured background, which I'm always a fan of doing. Sometimes it simulates doing a real life thing. I should add, if you're following along on paper, that's totally cool too. This is not restricted to Procreate for a reason. But if you do have Procreate on the iPad, you can pull up this file. I've decided to put it in the materials that you should have downloaded or can download. You can follow along and watch the time lapse. Okay, so on this new layer, let's get started. I'm gonna use this blue that I used before, thank goodness for the history. The brush I'm going to use today is in the default artistic palette, and it's called Old Beach. Alright, so I'm going to turn off this. The quote that I decided to use is from Dear Evan Hansen, the Broadway musical. If you don't know it, it's very sad, so it's perfect to pull a lyric about fear or awe. I'm going to take something from the second act number so big, so small. And if you know, that is a devastating track sung from the perspective of Evan's mom, and anything more may be a spoiler, so I will refrain from saying more. Check it out if you're into that kind of thing. The quote that I'm going to use is, "And I knew there would be space I couldn't fill." So, and I knew. What I'm doing here is not only writing it down as like a reference for myself, but doing an early step of figuring out how I'd want to break up this quote into something that would look like a lettering composition I could be proud of. That being said, be proud of all your lettering compositions. Okay, I'm gonna delete the layer where I wrote the name of the song. Let's go. Okay. Now I'm going to use that as my guide layer. I'm going to turn down the opacity on it. The way a neat fast trick is to tap on the layer. You can't see my hand, so I'll just tell you what I'm doing. Tap on the layer name with 2 fingers, and then the opacity slider shows up, and just slide it to the left, turn the opacity down. Another thing I mentioned was if you'd like to use guides are always helpful, even if you are quote-unquote a pro. So I'm going to show you a quick way to do that. I made a new layer, draw a line, and then hold it down so that Procreate recognizes it as a fully straight line, like so. That seems like a good angle. I'm going to duplicate this layer a couple times so I know all these lines are going to be about, like, definitely parallel. So I select the other copy. There we go. I'm gonna use my fingers to pinch the layers together. I'm gonna turn this guide down as well. Adjust my sketch. And just really dive into turning this into a script style and figuring out how I'm gonna do my 3-letter ligature. Like I said, I've already been down this road before, so the spoiler is I'm gonna combine the A, the capital T, and the capital B, like so. And I'm just gonna fill out the rest of it as though I've never done it before. Wow. Okay. One thing I like to do as I go, especially when it comes to multi-line pieces, well, first of all, I want to make the top of that W a little wider, so I just undid that, and I'll lift my pen and come back and fill that space. The fact that this quote is about filling space is a nice, pleasant coincidence for the lettering side of things. I feel like I was starting down the road of telling you something, and frankly, I've forgotten what it was, so we're just gonna start over as though I hadn't. I like zooming in and out. That's probably what it was. Zooming in and out as I go to check on the overall composition. What you'll see me doing very quickly is, I'm writing these script letters or these cursive letters very rapidly and confidently because I have practiced this. And if you're not there yet, again, that's totally fine. Highly recommend just doing your drills, finding those tutorials and workshops that help you train that muscle. But even if you're not there, there's nothing that should stop you from experimenting with pieces and things like this. Okay, so I am always going over my pieces with an eraser as I go to kind of sculpting them into the shape I want. My favorite one to use is the Studio Pen. It's very clean, even if I'm using a more organic paint brush. I prefer to clean it up very neatly and know that if I want to re-add some texture, I'll just do that with the brush. Okay, one thing I don't want to do, notice how this is tapping into the eye. Legibility wise, this might make some people think that I've drawn an L, and that's not good. So let's add some space there. And my technique is all over the place. Like I will go in and edit while I should probably still be drafting. But there is no right or wrong answer to how the process should look as you go. I think you should give yourself a lot of permission to just explore and experiment. Okay, here we go on the third line. The space, I. How do we want this C to work? This seems good. To get clever, make the P and L into another ligature. A little happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. And there we go. And if I zoom out, I'll notice, again, kind of funny, all the space above space. Looks like it could use some filling, so we could dip that capital W down a bit. And notice I just sort of went for the first composition that came to mind. You don't have to start fully exploring every composition like this. You should feel free to make a bunch of little thumbnails and pick one that feels the most right to you. A lot of times you discover what's best just by trying a lot of things at first. That maybe unlocks the next iteration that would be really cool, and so on. Okay, so that already helps a bit. I'm a fan. And now what I go in and do if I had more time is a lot of what you're seeing here, like taking the brush and tightening it up. I can decide if I want to keep it all mono width, like the same brush stroke length, or if I wanted to make it more of a faux calligraphy vibe, like so, where the down strokes are thicker and the upstrokes, I'm doing air quotes, you can't see them, but obviously like they're not all actually downstrokes and upstrokes. So anyway, this checks off the box. It's a quote kind of about fear. It's blue. We managed to get our handy dandy ligature in without really screwing up any of the legibility, and that's really the main thing. Will somebody be able to read the words? And if you can, then, you know, again, the sky is the limit for what you might want to make it look like. I might try, like, instead of the P straight into the L, maybe we could do like a curly Q little flourish there. In which case I might also just move down this line a bit so that L looks more like an L. Yeah, like that. Okay, pretty cruddy. I'll show you the original one that I made just now, which is not too far off, although I think the one that we just generated is a little better, especially if I keep going with the strokes here, thickening them, making them look a little more retro actually this way. And so I could probably spend, you know, another hour or a few just tightening this up. It's a very zen kind of practice, but for right now, I'll just see you back over on the video page and in the chat, and yeah, just have a good time with your own piece. All right, signing off of the iPad. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out, for listening to me talk about how you can think about this stuff better, for going through that Mad Libs exercise. I hope you picked something that you're excited to try lettering, and for going through that demo with me. Don't have too much else to say except that you can follow me on Instagram at DanDrawnWords. Stay inspired, stay making stuff, and have an incredible rest of your summer creative retreat. Until next time, onward.